Hi, I'm Dixie Jarko, and this is Author Showcase. Welcome.
Hey, I'm Bill Gillard. I'm an English professor at UWO. Happy to be here. Happy to be talking about books and publishing and all of that.
And today we're talking to Larissa Antonioni. I had a little trouble with that one. About her journey in publishing. So, Larissa, tell us about yourself and take it from there.
Okay. I am Larissa, as you already said. I am a developmental editor, a author with my debut novel out in the world now. It's a fantasy romance. I love coaching other writers and authors and public speaking as well. It has been such a journey becoming an author, as anyone who is in the publishing space knows, and there's always a learning curve, so it'll be fun to chat about.
Okay.
Absolutely. Good. Hey, so just to get us started, tell us about your writing process. This is your debut novel, A Realm of Lies and Power, just brilliant stuff, really, really fun. Where did it come from? How many decades has this been kicking around in your head? How long, what was the gestation period for this story? And how did it get from dreams, nightmares, onto the page?
Nightmares, definitely. So many. Honestly, it was a marinator, is what I call it. I always say my projects have to marinate for a while.
Sure.
So I'm actually generally, most of the time, a very fast drafter. Once I actually start writing, my drafts come out pretty quick. But that doesn't mean the ideas haven't been floating in my head for probably 6 years at least before I really started writing this one. So it was a while.
So is this your first published, or did you start with like doing small stories, or?
Yeah, I've had a couple of anthologies, mostly when I was in college. I did a lot of literary publications there, but as far as a novel, this is my first one.
Nice.
Good. So a romantic fantasy, a romantasy.
Romantasy.
What's your experience with the genre? And tell us a little bit about the genre for people maybe like me who aren't super familiar with it. It's a new word, but it's not something it's not like a new genre. Like there have been kind of mashups of romance and fantasy and, dragons and wizards for a long, long time. But this romantasy, what are the expectations of that genre, and what draws you to it?
So I always loved romantic subplots in a lot of the fantasy novels that I had read. So I always found it really interesting when those romances and the way those character arcs happened and the relationships actually fueled the story. So I think one of the things that is so unique and interesting about romantasy, separated from like just fantasy or fantasy romance, is that neither the fantasy plot or the romantic plot can stand on their own. They need both or the story will not work.
Interesting.
And I took a couple of webinars on it before I really started is this a fantasy romance? Is it a romantasy? And as I, decompressed and tore it all apart, I realized neither of these things can stand on their own without the other. So that's what makes it a romantasy.
What's a fantasy romance?
So romantasy and a fantasy romance is a subplot. So the characters will still have a relationship, but you could theoretically take the romance out and everything else would happen the same. Not the case with a romantasy. You pull the romance out and the whole story goes to poop. It doesn't exist anymore.
So what was your degree in college?
Human Services Leadership was my degree.
Okay.
I took a lot of literature classes as extracurriculars, I guess you would say, and I had to email the professors and be like, can you approve me so I can please take your literature class? Because otherwise they're like, nope, you got to stick to your degree. And I refused, so thank you, all UWO professors who decided to let me keep taking English classes.
Nice. So you always were kind of drawn that way.
I was, and I hadn't known much about actually publishing or the industry, so it seemed impossible. Otherwise, I may have chosen a different path. When I first wanted to go to school, I actually wanted to do editing. I wanted to be a developmental editor, but the idea of moving to a big city at the time, because the online space just did not exist as much as it does now, was daunting to me. I was like, there's no way I'm moving to New York City. I'm a small rural girl. I'm going to stay that way. Keep me in the middle of nowhere, please.
So tell us what's a developmental versus a line editor for people who might not know.
So developmental editor is making sure that you have all of your genre standards and that you are keeping on point with your story so that you hit your 3-act structure or whatever it might be for a specific story and where you are. It's also the person who can keep track of things like your eye color, your hair color for all of your characters. So editors will make a list and then be like, didn't this character have green eyes in the first chapter?
Sometimes eye color changes several times.
It does.
It can, because as an author, when you're just like in flow state, you don't really care. You're like,
Right.
I'll fix it later. Well, you forget to fix it later, and the editor will catch it for you. And then a line editor is somebody who is mostly looking at syntax, grammar, and flow. So it's not so much about the story and your character arcs as it is about just making it sound nice. They're making sure that your prose sounds good on the page to your readers.
So I know your process, you use a couple different writing aids, like Pro Writing Aid or AutoCrit. What is the difference between those kind of critiques and the kind you get from readers, beta readers?
So AutoCrit is a great tool. I love it. I will always use it as my first initial critique after a draft before any human being sees it.
Can you explain what that is? Because I don't know what it is.
Yes. So AutoCrit is a both drafting and editing tool. So you can write in it. I don't, because I think it's clunky and I don't like to write in it. But it has a AI system, which I know is scary for a lot of writers and authors. We're living in a kind of weird age for that. But they're not training their AI on your writing. It is just to provide you feedback. Like, all of that stuff stays private. I read all of their things before I signed up because I was nervous. But they will be like, you could enhance this scene if you change your mood for this scene. And then it'll give you suggestions on how to do that. So it could say, amplify the weather, make it storming instead of sunny out, or whatever it is. And you can choose, obviously, as a writer, whether you're gonna accept that feedback or not. But they have a beta reader that looks at your whole manuscript, and it'll help you find plot holes, things that are inconsistent, so you can fix some of the really big issues before you let somebody like your writers group see it.
That's really interesting.
It's
So
cool.
yeah.
How long have you used that? Is that
2 years, I think I've had the program now.
2 years too.
And so does that cover the first draft of this novel?
Usually my first
now?
draft gets seen and put through that whole system beforehand, and then I'll let a series of beta readers see it. So I think I had 15 beta readers, and then I put it in again. And
Did you go chapter by chapter, or
so it detects your chapters for you?
Flow state.
So, oh gosh, I'm a flow state girl. 0 drafts is how I write my book. Like, I'm writing the sequel right now, and no one will ever see what this looks like right now because none of it makes any sense. That's what edits are for.
Yeah. Wow. And so that process, how does that interact with working with the AI? How does that interact with just kind of the chronology of it? Did you wait until you had beginning, middle, end, and you're like, hey, this is pretty good. Let me see.
Yeah.
Is that what you did?
See, now I do each chapter after I'm done with it.
Many people do.
Wow.
And I'll do it later too.
That's
I'm
interesting.
getting my dollar's worth. But
And what has been your experience?
I love it, both for the positive and the whole plot. Or I'm trying to write horror now, 3 series novels of horror, and I have never really written a larger volume in horror. So it's telling me, when I put in, I want to write this in horror, it tells me some of the tropes and some of the places I could make scarier changes.
Oh, that's
Especially
really
my
interesting.
beta readers don't read
So
horror,
fun.
so.
Yeah. Well, and what's cool now is I don't know how recently you've been on there, like if you've been in there recently. So the tropes thing is actually new. They did not used to have that. And what is awesome is not only is it really helpful for editing, revising, polishing your manuscript, but it also gives you book blurbs,
Yep.
one-line tags. You can use tropes that you can use for marketing, which is, most
And
authors,
audience.
it's the bane of our existence.
I just used it for audience, what kind of audience would be for the last novel I wrote, and it gave me comparisons of 2 novels, which is something they say agents always ask for.
comp titles.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it was very, very cool.
Yeah, it's really neat. Highly suggest to every writer
Because
ever.
by the time you're done with the huge, big picture of the novel, you don't want to go back and do the synopsis. You don't want to.
And not only that, we have so few friends in this world. You don't want to say, hey, you're my friend. Read my novel. Oh my God, no, make it stop. Right?
Especially if they don't read your genre. Like my
Sure.
husband does not read horror, and he's just like, what is this? What is it? And I'm like, well, the people in horror will know what that is.
Yes.
Yeah.
like a familiar,
Yep. I know
you
what
know,
a familiar is.
it's an animal that is with a witch. And
Yep.
he was like, no.
Do you see this like fundamentally changing our relationship with beta readers and all the favors we owe people for?
Yeah.
Come on, it's only 400
No,
pages.
Bill, you still have to read my book. I'm sorry.
No, yes, I will. I
And
promise
review
I
it.
will. I will.
Ah,
'Cause
arc reader.
they won't
I
do
should.
reviewers, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not yet.
It is beta reading, asking somebody to beta read your book. I always try to make it as polished as possible before
Yes.
they get it, so that hopefully it'll just be super subtle things and they can just read it as a reader. They are not, like, you're not asking somebody when you're asking them to beta read for you to be your proofreader or your editor. You're generally asking them to read it as somebody who would pick up on the shelves and then just make a small note that's like, this just doesn't make sense to me, I'm sorry. And then the author can look at it and decide whether or not they're going to fix it. I fix most of mine if my beta readers notice it. I try to.
Yeah. Yeah.
So with all that in mind, I want to speak with you about a couple of things in Realm of Lies and Power in particular, and one of them is I've written a bunch of stuff, as you know. I've written a bunch of stuff, and it's so one of the things that takes me so much time, and I talk to my students about this, just the point of view choices that go into this. And you have a story in your head and it starts coming out, and sometimes you could feel it's right, other times you just feel it, you're fighting it, and like, all right, do I go first person here? Do I go multiple first persons here? Do I go third person, then at what distance? And then like present tense, past all the like these the storytelling choices. You landed on multiple points of view here, which is really, really ambitious. And I want to know how you got there. Was that just after like months of struggle with trying to fit this foot into a shoe that didn't fit? Or how did you arrive at multiple points of view, which is a really, really challenging decision in a first novel, especially? Oh my goodness, it took Faulkner his 20th novel to really get into that. But what do you? I just compared you to William Faulkner.
You did, and I'm like, please don't, because my writing is not. First of all, the genres aren't the same, and secondly, just don't.
That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, everyone should disregard what Bill just said.
But anyway, talk about your journey into multiple points of view.
Yeah. So I did not think I was going to do dual POV when I first started writing the book, because it does have its own unique set of challenges. So just making sure that I had their internal dialogue, I guess, was the hardest part. So making sure that Renwick, my male main character, does not sound like Davina when you're reading his point
Right
of
from
view.
the start. That was one of the things that hit me, was like this profanity landed like immediately. F-bomb.
He swears
Boom.
a lot, yeah.
And
she
for
does
what I
not.
knew of Ravina, yeah, like it was sudden. I was like, ooh, that's what. Oh wait, it's a different person. I'm inside someone else's head, and that just those you told me through showing me the dialogue or letting me hear it. I was hearing
That's
a different
nice to
voice.
hear, thanks.
Yeah, I heard that different voice,
Faulkner.
and it shifted under my feet very quickly because of that. Just that choice.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it was one of the things, too. I'm so grateful for the Oshkosh Area Writers Club, which Dixie is a part of. So Dixie was definitely able to be like, Larissa, I don't think Davina would think that. And like, you know what? You're right. I'm taking that out. That sounds more like Renwick. So sometimes I completely removed the line. Other times I'm like, it just has to show up in somebody else's perspective. So then I moved it. When you're telling the story, that's again something that is just so different. There were scenes that when I got really stuck in the drafting process, I had to sit there and be like, well, maybe this isn't supposed to be told from Davina's point of view. I'm going to try writing it from Renwick's point of view and see what happens.
But yet you have to get all the information in to move the story forward.
Yes, it was not simple necessarily, but it usually drives the story forward in the way that it should go.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. And even if you're struggling to find, how to tell this particular key moment and whose eyes your reader will see it through, you can learn about the scene and learn about the tension, the characters, and the energy in the scene by just seeing it through different eyes. Even if you just choose, a third or fifth or bystander character to take a look at the scene and what's happening. You can learn, and I really appreciate that, how it came out and how we have the opportunity to see things through these characters, very limited kind of points of view. The more you get to know them, they have, especially Ravina, we have to talk about her. The thing that strikes me about her and what made me feel such an identity, she is hiding so much, not only from the world, but from herself. The way she reacts, and it's early, it's not a spoiler, it's whatever, page 3, death of her parents, right?
Yeah,
And
not
not crying, and just pushing it right down. In the same way she does with her power that she's vaguely aware of, pushing it right down, because it's inconvenient, it's scary, it's painful, whatever it is. This is a character who is refusing to know herself, and that is a recipe for all of us, recipe for disaster.
Internal conflict
Yeah.
is my best friend when I write, and it's what I want when I read. So I think one of the things I constantly ask myself when I'm drafting, and probably in revision too, is would I want to read it? And I don't ever want to read a book that has no internal conflict, because if there isn't any, I'm not interested in the characters. I won't relate to them. So it's really nice to hear that Davina had a lot of internal conflict, because man, I tried.
Oh, sure. No, and that drives it. And as a parent, and I have 2 daughters, they're older, but they still need parenting. They're in their 20s. But I was feeling a bit parental at that point, like, ooh, you sure you don't want to talk about this? Because I'm right here. And I don't have much of, as you know, a social life. Right? I'm right here always, ready to talk. And so, it made me feel real. And right from the start, I felt, as Sven, protective, a little bit. Yeah, so good. Yeah, so talk about that as a driver of plot, as a way that you conceived the whole novel, even.
Yeah, so it's really a big theme, which I didn't realize when I was writing it. I think most authors and writers don't really know what their big themes are in their book until they're actually done. We don't know what the heck we're saying until the book is the end. You write those 2 words and this is what the story's about. I think so much of it, so Dixie asked what I did for school and what my degree was, and I was in human services leadership. And outside of being an author, my drive is always to help people. I always want people to see or to feel seen and heard, and that was a big motivator with Davina, and just letting her know throughout the story that it's okay that she's imperfect and that she's got darkness inside her, because we all do, and you can be loved anyway. And that is honestly probably the biggest theme in the book. So her internal dialogue is thinking that she's worthless, and that this dark magic makes her feel like she's gonna ruin everybody's lives. And then Renwick is kind of her mentor / love interest along the way, that's no, you are worthy just for being who you are, and you are perfectly worthy of being in this world. And I think and hope that readers are getting that when they pick up the book.
So who is your targeted reader? You said there was a lot of swearing and stuff. Is it a YA or
this is not YA?
No.
It is what would be called new adult.
New adult,
So
yep.
it is 18 to
Another
30.
genre I've never
Yes.
heard.
So it's new. It's very new. So
new adult. Yeah.
it is.
Been around a couple years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Sarah J. Maas and Rebecca Yarros are 2 really romantic-y popular authors right now, and that's their genre. And then I think Yennefer L. Armentrout. If people like Yennefer L. Armentrout, that's really who my book is written for.
Immensely popular.
Those.
Yeah. These are filling up the shelves at
They are.
Barnes
It's
and
crazy.
Noble. And,
My dream.
So
My dream.
with all that, you're like a master marketer, in my opinion.
Well, thank you.
You have an Instagram that's got 2,500 or so. And then you've got a newsletter that's very polished and professional. How does that all? Do you schedule those things,
Oh,
or
yeah. Yeah.
how do you come up with? I'm gonna do Instagram and be a force.
Instagram is actually where I got most of my beta readers and ARC readers, so
Really?
I'm so glad to have done Instagram. And I have always listened to podcasts, and one of the things that a lot of authors would say is, I just wish I started on Instagram sooner, or I just wish I started my newsletter sooner. Like, okay, I'm not going to make that mistake. I'm going to start now. And I'm so glad I did, because I got most of my readers that way.
Really?
And it has been amazing to connect with other writers there. It has been phenomenal. Like, I get most of my editing contracts. I had somebody messaging me today, and I'm like, I don't even think they saw my website. I had to send them to my website.
I know. What's the deal with websites aren't
They don't have
important
much
anymore.
traction. If I didn't
Yeah.
have to do like
I've heard that.
the forms to get the information I needed, I probably wouldn't have one.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I haven't figured out a different way.
Yeah.
Because I don't really love Google Forms for that. But yeah, Instagram has been monumental, and I absolutely schedule all my posts. I batch
Interesting.
them. I batch them for a month at a time.
Oh my God.
And then I schedule
That's so
them.
organized.
Well, because if I don't, then I don't have time for writing. And I want writing to always be the
Yeah.
thing that I'm doing the most.
Because the Instagram and that stuff takes me as long as the writing. I'd rather be writing.
I would much rather be writing. So I spend a day making all of my content for the next month, and then every other day after that, I get to write.
Wow.
Wow.
That's really impressive.
So what's an example of your approach? I mean, that's a great question. Great.
Yeah, for
insight?
Instagram, do you put up personal stuff or do you put up only stuff about your book?
I do both. So one of the things that I have found to be the thing that readers and writers both, since I market to both, that is, I guess the thing that gets the most engagement are the personal stories. So they want to know that, not just that I'm credible, but that I'm a human being. Like, there is a person behind
Are
this
you?
screen. I am, I think. I'm checking, like, for gears and stuff. I think I'm human.
Okay.
Her last name starts with A and ends with I, however, and so
That's
we
true.
may not be.
Italian, okay. But there are 3 pillars really to Instagram that a lot of expert marketers will say, and I don't know that I do them perfectly.
Oh,
Actually, in
good.
fact, I know that I don't.
What
do
are
them
they?
perfectly.
Spill.
Oh, yeah.
But it is
Tell us.
inspirational, so inspiring people to do something, whether that be buying your book or whether that be writing their own book. So that's pillar 1. And then pillar 2 is your call to action, which is usually where you're like, please go get my book. Please. Like, I'm begging you, please go buy my book. And then the other one is letting them know who you are, making sure that they know that you are a real
Personal.
person and that you probably wrote the book for a reason. So I mentioned that Davina has pretty terrible self-worth. I have also really struggled with my self-worth over the years, and I let my readers know that, and that's where the story came from. So they know that, oh, this is somebody who actually had experience feeling the same things that I'm feeling. I'm probably going to like her book.
Interesting. Do you do Facebook at all, or are you
Not
just
as much as I should,
you're just
probably.
focused on the Instagram and the website?
I like the
and blog?
platform better, and I like how the algorithm works.
Yeah.
I get so many more views there. My Facebook only has maybe 200 people on there versus my Instagram that has 2,600. Like, that's a big difference. So I try to
But you have a
focus-
podcast too.
And I have a podcast. It's got I haven't lost any listeners, so that's good. It hasn't been growing necessarily, but I haven't lost
What
anyone.
is it
and I'll
about?
take it as a win. Mostly writing, the craft
Okay.
of writing. So me and my friend who actually lives in Croatia, so our time zones are very
wow.
different. Scheduling is not our friend. But we talk to authors and industry specialists of all walks of life. We just talked to a cover designer who actually worked on Elise Kova's books, who is a very also romantasy author, very popular, a national bestseller. She was just on our podcast. Super cool. Love doing it. Anyone can reach out to us anytime. It's called The Fiction Affair. You can find us on Substack. Anyone can interview with us. We love talking to other authors and just industry specialists in general.
So did you do any of those like blog tours when you started?
I
Or
did
guess
not.
You're still starting.
This was a hard launch, okay? This book was, I didn't know what I was doing. I have learned so much since then.
You're self-published, correct?
I am self-published,
Okay.
yeah. So I had to learn everything, including my interior formatting and making sure that when my husband, who did my cover, that it actually fit the book. Like, making sure that the sizing was working. Like, I did all of it with his help, thank goodness.
When you say he did the cover,
He illustrated the cover.
just like it, because it's a beautiful cover.
He loves to hear that, so I'll make sure I tell him.
What was it? What materials process is this? Like what?
like physical materials that he used
Is it
on
pen
his...
and ink?
Yeah,
Is it?
yeah.
So he used a combination of so many tools that I probably don't even know them all. But Procreate is really popular for illustrators. And then Photoshop was how he made sure that everything was sized correctly, because it was the easiest place to change the dimensions. Also just formatting and making sure that it's saved correctly and was easy to upload was also easier on Photoshop.
Yeah.
And who knows how many other tools he used. I watched him do it and I'm like, I don't know what that is. And then I walked away because I could not do what he did.
Have you done an audiobook yet, or are you thinking about it?
Oh, you guys. So
What?
I just put my book up on ACX for narrator auditions, and I have like 5 that I have to look at when I get home.
Oh, nice.
So hopefully soon it will be an audiobook.
Wow.
I hope.
What
Then I
do
have
you-
to make an offer and hope they accept, but we'll see.
What does one gain by making their book available in that form, audio form?
Accessibility.
Oh, a lot more people. My son,
much.
he only listens at work. He just reads books all the time.
Or commute. So when I
Yeah.
used to drive for an hour
Oh,
to
yeah.
my job, I got, gosh, I swear 50% of my books I read during the year were probably just listened to in the car because I was driving.
Yeah.
And it's also accessibility. If somebody is visually impaired or gets migraines or has any issues similar to that, they're likely going to listen to it more than they would read it. So if
Sure.
you don't have an audiobook, you are losing out on a chunk of readership. So
That's
I'm hoping to
interesting.
bridge
And
the gap.
revenue.
And revenue, yes.
Sure. And so your process, you said you posted it where? And how does that work?
Yeah, so there are multiple different platforms you can use. So I chose ACX because my ebook is Kindle Unlimited, and it honestly, I know people have their issues with Amazon, but as an indie author, they are the easiest to work with. They just really are. They make the process so easy, and ACX is directly related to Audible, so it's super easy to upload. So you just, as an author, would put up your book, the information that is imperative for a narrator to know. So like, it's dual POV, the genre is romantasy, this is kind of what I imagine my character is sounding like, and then if a narrator finds it interesting or they want to take a stab at it, then they audition. So I've gotten a wide range of narrators. It's super cool. They all sound super different. The ones that I have listened to, I said I have 5 today, I think, that I saw, but I listened to 3 yesterday, and they all sound so different.
And what do they do? They send you a sample, they read a couple of pages?
Yep,
And,
so 2 to 3 minutes is usually their sample length. I think I got a couple that were a little more than that, which I was very grateful for because it gives you just a more of an idea of what they sound like. So I asked for a female narrator who can pitch her voice very low because obviously I have 2 characters and one of them is male. So one of them, I was like, oh my gosh, I could never pitch my voice that low. This is impressive. So credit to all of the narrators out there, voice actors. It is a skill set I do not have.
Now in Draft to Digital, which is what I use, they give you 4 AI, a high male, a low male, a high female, and a low female. And a child if you're doing children's book. And you just pick one of them and there it goes.
Yep, there are AI options.
interesting.
I found a lot of narrators so there are 2 really big book events coming up. There's Pack in the Readers, which is in Green Bay. I will be there signing, and one of the narrators is there. And I know she's auditioning because she messaged me today, but she'll also be at Pack in the Readers. So if you have any interest in making audiobooks with a real live person who is also within our state, so you can kind of support the
Wow.
economy of artists we love, she's there. And then Booked Eau Claire has, I think, 3 different narrators that are going to be there in September. So you can meet with them in person and decide if you want to work with a real live narrator as well.
What's in it for them?
So there are multiple different ways you can do it. You can pay up front, or you can do with ACX what is called royalty share. So I put mine up for royalty share, which just means I don't pay any money up front because it is $200 about per finished hour for a narrator. So my book is about 13 hours in audiobook. That's a lot of money. I'm an indie author. I don't make that kind of money.
Of course, a lot of money for anybody,
it's
yeah.
like, it would be a lot of money for anyone. Traditionally published authors sometimes, like if you're like Big 5 traditionally published, they can afford to get really
Sure.
expensive narrators and pay up front. But royalty share is where a narrator will do it with you, and then every time the book as an audiobook sells, they get 25%, I believe, and you get 40%, or it might be the other way around. I don't remember.
And the best part of it is somebody else handles the split and the accounting.
So
and all
nice.
That.
You don't have
Yeah.
to do any of it. You just, when somebody gets purchases the audiobook from Audible, you get a share, and it just goes right to your account. You don't have to touch any of it until you do your taxes.
Really interesting. Yes.
So you said you're doing another one, a sequel.
Working on a sequel.
Is it going to be a 3-book series or a 5-book?
That is the current plan, 3-book series for this main series. So for anyone who reads the book, you will see that there are 5 different realms that are mentioned in this book. I currently have it planned out that every single one of those realms could have at least 2 books.
Oh, that's good.
So 10 books minimum.
You know where you're going.
I have plans, grand plans. So this book series will, for this particular realm, it's called the Arcane Realm, will have 3 books. And then we'll see what the other ones all entail. If there will be a standalone, maybe some will be novellas. I know I kind of have an idea of the characters for each of them already, but I haven't looked at much beyond that.
So can you tell people where they can find your books? You said Amazon, Audible.
So Amazon is for Kindle Unlimited and ebook as well as paperback. I am hoping to get paperbacks more widely dispersed soon. I'll be honest, I haven't done it yet because I'm a tired mom to a 2-year-old. But they will be wide soon.
Or your website.
And my website, which will always have the updated information, is www.fictionallylarissa.com. And on Instagram, if you want to find me, which I'll be honest is probably where I'm the most active, it is @authorlarissawrites.
Okay.
Nice. I have one particular question and then one broader question. Okay. Talk about the map of the Arcane Realms.
So I made the map.
It's a beautiful map. So simple, but it's really an exciting first step. It's one of the it's a fantasy trope that you
People want the
open and
maps.
you got the map
Yep.
and there's the world. And it's so exciting to step into it and say, oh, okay, and you look back and you find the map. How'd you make the map?
Thank you. So there are so many different ways that you can make a map. I used World Anvil as part of it. They were kind of how I structured my map to figure out what it
World
looked like.
Anvil?
Yes.
That sounds
World
a little violent.
Anvil. It does. It's a Dungeons and Dragons
gamers
platform,
thing, yeah.
actually. Yeah. So writers will use it too. So what's really cool about their platform is that it's a husband and a wife. The wife is a writer and the husband is a gamer, and they made the platform together. So it's super cute. They're very nice. I've met them a couple of times, virtually. Amazing people.
Wow.
So also you can just support some really nice people. So I used them in part, and then I went and did it in Procreate to kind of use specific brush strokes to try and make it look more like a map that I wanted.
Are you a visual person? Do you paint? Do you draw?
I do. I'm not great at it, but I do like it.
Okay.
And the best part about digital is I can just delete it real easy when it doesn't look good. And then I just kept doing it. And I was also very lucky. So I'm not an epic fantasy reader generally, but I know that epic fantasy readers are really, really into their maps.
Yes.
So my friends who are really big into the maps and reading epic fantasies like Brandon Sanderson, I gave them my map and I was like, tell me where this looks like crap. And then they did. So I was able to go in and fix it. There's a spot in the map that there are valleys, or there's a valley in between a mountain pass. And a friend of mine was like, Larissa, there'd be a camp there and probably some water from trickling down. I'm like, yeah, I don't know that. So then I went in and I fixed it. So I was also just very lucky to have a lot of different eyes on my project.
Well, that's great. All right. So you mentioned mother to a young child. And I, as a writer, also experienced the before time when my time was my own, and then children. And having to navigate, how has your writing process changed since the greatest person in the world arrived?
He is the greatest person in the whole world.
Oh,
I love
no
my
doubt.
son
No
so
doubt.
much.
No doubt.
But yeah, it has changed so much. So
How
prior,
have you navigated this?
So prior to having my 2-year-old, I had a very dedicated space for writing. So I would write. That's completely gone.
Yeah.
That's out of the window. My office, it's his favorite spot in the whole world because he knows where all the colored markers and highlighters are. So then he goes and gets all the markers and highlighters, and I won't find them probably for 3 days. But so that's one of the things that has changed. But the phrase I often use, honestly, is now the biggest difference is I write within the margins of life. So anytime I have 10 minutes I am writing something down, or using a voice memo. Like, I will just record while I'm doing the dishes. I will like stick my phone in my shirt and I will be doing dishes and I will talk at my phone, and then I will use like it's not called dictation, but kind of like I'll put it up to my microphone on my computer.
Oh yeah,
and
voice to text. They're all
voice
kinds
to text.
Yeah, they're all kinds of ways.
The formatting is
I
really
just
messed up.
Did something IT there.
You did.
Yes,
Good
are you
job.
impressed with me?
So impressed.
Because most of the time I have no idea what people are talking about.
It's
Okay.
okay.
Yes, voice to
Okay,
text, of
yes.
course.
Voice
yes.
to text, basically. I'll talk at my phone. It is my friend. Because I think, as a writer, as any writer knows, that if you don't somehow document the idea when you have it,
Yeah,
it's gone. It's gone. You'll lose it.
Like
Poof.
a dream, 5 minutes after waking up.
Yes, exactly.
It dissipates.
It does. It dissipates. So I try to, honestly, that's just the biggest thing I try to avoid. So even if I
That's
can't
great.
get a whole scene out, I'm like, I picture Davina and Renwick doing this thing at this spot so I can write it later when I actually have time to go sit down.
So, yeah. So that's a big change. We talked about Instagram and we talked about your virtual tools and but what I see in you and what I know about you is that you're also connected like just person to person. Can you talk about the value of that kind of like real like literary center? Talk about the your just connections to the Oshkosh Writers Group. The real human interactions that are fundamentally different from Instagram and working with AI and stuff. But talk about the value of that in this world for us in a solitary life like
everyone needs a in-person writing community. I know that there are writers who will hear this and be like, oh my God, I can't do people. That probably is most writers, honestly. You need to not write in an echo chamber or in a vacuum. Like, you need a bunch of Oshkosh Area Writers Club members or Lake Literary Center. So for those who are local in Fond du Lac, we definitely need to be writing together, letting each other do story swaps. And one of the great things about having a community too is you have someone to uplift you when imposter syndrome and self-doubt comes in, because it's unavoidable and you need your people to tell you that you don't actually suck at writing.
So that's Lake
or when you do.
Lake Literary, is it .org? Is that?
I believe they're Lake Literary oh gosh, I feel so bad. I'm so sorry, Erica. If you look up Lake Literary Center Fond du Lac, it'll pop up.
Yes, a brilliant new place. And Oshkosh Writers Group, and for anybody watching this, if you don't even have to look hard, you will find writers groups here and there, even in small towns, and then in big towns, Appleton, Oshkosh, Fond du Lac, there are,
or make one.
Yeah. So.
All right. Well, thank you very much. We are welcoming Larissa Antonioni and Bill.
Good,
and
yeah,
myself.
and you can find this as wherever you found it. We're on YouTube. We're on the local cable channels in Oshkosh. So thank you, Larissa. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to Author Showcase of Oshkosh with your hosts, Dixie Joe Jarko, Bill Gillard, and Thomas Cannon. We'd love to hear from you, whether you're interested in being a guest on the show, have a question, or want to share your thoughts. Please reach out to us on social media or via email at oshkoshauthorshowcase@gmail.com.